Are you tired of studying English for months or even years and still feeling stuck? You know the grammar rules. You've memorized hundreds of words. You watch English videos every week. But when it's time to speak, you freeze. Or when you listen to native speakers, you can't keep up. Here's the truth. It's not because you're bad at English. It's because you're making mistakes that almost every English learner makes. Mistakes that secretly slow you down and make learning feel harder than it really is. But don't worry. In this episode, I'm going to show you exactly what those mistakes are, and more importantly, how to avoid them. We're going to break down the top 5 mistakes English learners make and give you clear, practical steps you can use today to fix them. Because once you stop making these mistakes, learning English becomes easier, faster, and a lot more fun. Ready? Let's get started. Part 1. Mistake. Number 1. Focusing too much on grammar and not enough on using English. One of the biggest mistakes English learners make is spending most of their time obsessing over grammar rules while almost never using English in real life. And let me tell you, this mistake can keep you stuck for years. Now, don't get me wrong. Grammar is important. It gives you the structure of the language. But here's the truth that many learners don't realize. Grammar alone will never make you fluent. You can memorize every tense, every irregular verb, and every conditional rule, but if you don't practice using English in a real way, you'll still freeze when someone asks you a simple question like, "How was your day? Why does this happen?" Because grammar is like the blueprint of a house. You can study the blueprint all you want, but if you never pick up a hammer and build something, you'll never have a house. This mistake often starts in school. Most of us were taught English in a classroom where the focus was on writing sentences, filling in blanks, and memorizing grammar charts. And maybe you got good grades, but when it came time to speak to someone in English, your mind went blank. That's because you practiced English with your eyes, not with your mouth and ears. So how do you avoid this mistake? You need to flip your priorities. Instead of spending 80% of your time on grammar and 20% on actual use, you need to reverse it. Focus 80% of your time on input and output, listening, speaking, reading, and writing in a natural way, and only 20% on formal grammar study. Here's how to do it step by step. 1. Start speaking earlier than you think. You don't need to wait until your grammar is perfect to start speaking. In fact, waiting until you feel ready is one of the biggest traps. You'll never feel ready, and your fear of making mistakes will only grow. Start small. Talk to yourself in English when you're alone. Describe what you're doing. I'm cooking pasta. Now I'm adding salt. Record your voice on your phone. Join online speaking groups. The more you use English, the faster your brain will connect the grammar you've studied to real communication. 2. Learn grammar through examples, not just rules. Instead of memorizing abstract explanations, focus on sentences and phrases you can actually use. For example, instead of studying the present perfect tense for hours, take a phrase like, "I have just finished dinner," and practice saying it in different ways. I have just finished my homework. I have just finished my project. I have just finished watching a movie. When you use real sentences, the grammar becomes automatic. 3. Use listening and reading to absorb grammar naturally. Have you ever noticed how children never sit down and learn grammar rules, yet they speak perfectly after a few years? That's because they get thousands of hours of listening input. You can do the same by surrounding yourself with English, podcasts, YouTube videos, audiobooks, TV shows, and music. Pay attention to how native speakers form their sentences. Even if you don't understand every word, your brain is learning the patterns. 4. Don't be afraid of mistakes. One of the main reasons learners focus so much on grammar is fear. Fear of sounding stupid, fear of being corrected, fear of not being understood. But here's the thing. Mistakes are a sign that you're using the language. They're proof that you're learning. Every time you make a mistake and someone corrects you, that lesson stays in your mind much longer than if you just read about it in a book. 5. Write small daily sentences instead of long essays. Writing is a fantastic way to practice grammar, but you don't need to write a full essay every day. Start by writing 3 simple sentences about your day. I woke up late, I made breakfast, I went to work. Over time, your sentences will naturally become more complex as you gain confidence. Here's a real-life example. Imagine 2 learners, Sarah and Ahmed. Sarah spends 2 hours a day studying grammar from a textbook. Ahmed spends the same 2 hours listening to English podcasts, reading short articles, and practicing speaking online. After 6 months, who do you think can hold a conversation? Ahmed, without a doubt. Sarah might be able to explain the difference between will and going to. But when a native speaker says, "Hey, what are you up to?" she'll freeze. Why? Because she's never heard that phrase before. Ahmed, on the other hand, has heard it multiple times in real conversations and knows how to respond. Not much, just relaxing. This is why focusing too much on grammar can actually hurt your progress. It gives you knowledge in your head, but no ability to use it in real life. So what's the solution? Make grammar a support tool, not the main event. Use it to answer questions you have from real-life practice. For example, if you're speaking and you think, "Wait, should I say I did or I have done?" Then go look up the rule. That's how grammar sticks, when you connect it to a real situation. And here's the good news. The more you practice using English, the better your grammar will naturally become. You'll start to notice patterns. You'll start to feel what sounds right. And that intuition is much stronger than memorized rules. To sum it up, stop waiting for perfect grammar before you use English. Make listening and speaking your priority. Learn grammar in context, not in isolation. And most importantly, don't let the fear of mistakes hold you back. If you can change this one thing about your learning routine, you will feel more confident, more motivated, and more connected to the language. You'll stop studying English and start living it. Part 2. Mistake number 2. Translating everything instead of thinking in English. One of the most common mistakes English learners make is constantly translating every word from their native language into English before speaking, writing, or even listening. At first, this seems natural. After all, when you're learning a new language, you rely on the language you already know to make sense of the new one. But here's the problem. Translating slows you down and creates confusion. It's like trying to drive a car with the handbrake on. Every time you want to speak, you have to stop. Think of the sentence in your native language. Translate each word, fix the grammar, and then finally say it. By the time you're ready, the conversation has already moved on. Even worse, translating word for word often leads to awkward or incorrect sentences because languages don't match perfectly. Expressions, sentence structures, and even basic word order can be completely different. For example, in English we say, "I miss you." But in many other languages, the sentence is structured differently, more like, "You are missed by me," or "I feel your absence." If you try to translate it directly, it won't sound natural. So, how do you avoid this mistake? You have to train your brain to think in English instead of relying on constant translation. And while that might sound difficult, it's absolutely possible if you follow a few practical steps. 1. Start with simple phrases you know well. Thinking in English doesn't mean you have to form long, complicated sentences in your head right away. Start small. Train your brain to use short, basic phrases in English without translating. For example, instead of thinking "anajair" and then translating it into "I am hungry," just train yourself to jump straight to "I'm hungry." Do the same with everyday thoughts like "I'm tired," "It's hot today," "I need coffee." "What time is it?" At first, this will feel slow and strange, but with repetition, these short phrases will become automatic. 2. Describe your surroundings in English. One powerful way to think in English is to narrate your life in your head. Look around you and describe what you see in simple English sentences. For example, "There's a red car on the street." "That man is walking his dog." "I'm sitting at my desk with a cup of tea." This exercise forces your brain to use English naturally, without the extra step of translation. And because you're talking about real things around you, the words stick better. 3. Practice with pictures or objects. Pick an object, like your phone, a chair, or a cup, and describe it in English. Talk about its color, size, and what it's used for. This method is especially helpful because it removes the temptation to translate. You're looking directly at the object, so your brain focuses on connecting English words to what you see, not to your native language. 4. Learn entire phrases, not just individual words. One of the biggest reasons learners translate is because they only know isolated words. When you know full phrases, you can use them without thinking about each word. For example, instead of memorizing just the word rain, learn the full phrase, "It's raining." Then practice variations. "It's raining hard." "It's going to rain." "I hope it doesn't rain tomorrow." This way, you don't have to translate. You already have ready-made sentences in your brain. 5. Stop obsessing over understanding every word. When you're listening to English, your brain will want to translate everything. Fight that instinct. Focus on the overall meaning, not every single word. Think about it. Even in your native language, you don't analyze every word people say. You just understand the message. English works the same way. Train your ears to pick up the general idea first, and you'll naturally stop translating so much. 6. Change the language on your phone and apps. This is a small but powerful trick. If you change your phone's language to English, you'll be forced to see and understand common phrases in English every day. Settings, battery low, swipe to unlock. These small daily exposures will push your brain to think directly in English instead of translating. 7. Be patient with yourself. Thinking in English won't happen overnight. At first, you will still translate, and that's okay. But every time you catch yourself doing it, pause and try to form the thought directly in English. Over time, this habit will get weaker and weaker until it disappears completely. Here's a real-life example. Maria, one of my students, used to struggle with conversations because she translated everything in her head from Spanish to English. By the time she finished translating, the other person had already changed the subject. She felt embarrassed and started avoiding conversations. We changed her routine completely. She started practicing short English phrases out loud every morning. She described what she was doing at home in English. "I'm brushing my teeth. I'm making breakfast." She also started thinking about her schedule in English. "I have a meeting at 10. I need to go to the supermarket." After just 1 month of practicing, something amazing happened. She realized she was starting to think in English without even trying. Conversations became faster and more natural because she wasn't stopping to translate in her head. Here's the bottom line. If you want to speak English fluently, you have to break the translation habit. You can't build confidence if every sentence feels like a puzzle you have to solve before you speak. Start small. Use simple sentences. Narrate your life. Learn whole phrases. Focus on the message, not perfection. And most importantly, trust the process. At first, you'll still translate sometimes. But if you practice these techniques consistently, your brain will make the switch. And when that happens, your fluency will skyrocket. Because true fluency isn't just speaking English, it's thinking in English. Part 3. Mistake number 3. Focusing only on passive learning and never practicing speaking. Another huge mistake that holds English learners back is focusing almost entirely on passive learning. Reading, watching videos, listening to podcasts, while avoiding the one skill that actually makes you fluent: speaking. Now, don't get me wrong. Passive learning is important. Reading and listening give you input, the vocabulary, grammar, and sentence patterns your brain needs to understand the language. But here's the problem. If all you ever do is consume English, you'll never be able to produce it confidently. Think of it like learning to drive a car by watching YouTube videos. You might understand the theory, but when you sit in the driver's seat for the first time, you'll panic. Why? Because knowledge doesn't equal ability. You need hands-on practice to turn information into skill. That's exactly how English works. If you spend years only reading and listening, you'll know a lot in your head. But when it's time to speak, you'll freeze. Words will get stuck. Sentences will come out broken. And you'll feel frustrated thinking, I understand English, so why can't I speak it? 1. Why this mistake is so common. Most learners focus on passive learning because it's safer. Reading and listening are private. No one can hear your mistakes. You don't risk embarrassment. Speaking, on the other hand, feels scary. You worry about sounding stupid, being judged, or not finding the right words. This fear is natural, but it's also dangerous. If you avoid speaking, you never train your brain to retrieve the words you know. Speaking fluently is like a muscle. If you don't use it, it stays weak. 2. The solution. Balance input and output. To avoid this mistake, you need to create a balance between passive learning, input, and active practice, output. Here's a good rule of thumb. For every hour you spend listening or reading, spend at least 30 minutes speaking or writing. And no, you don't need a native speaker or expensive lessons to start speaking. You can practice right now, even if you're alone. 3. How to practice speaking, even if you're shy or alone. Here are some powerful ways to add speaking practice to your routine. Talk to yourself in English. This might feel silly, but it's one of the best ways to build fluency. Describe what you're doing. I'm making coffee. I'm opening the fridge. Talk about your plans. Today I need to finish this project. Later I'll call my friend. Use the 1-minute story technique. Pick a topic, like your last vacation or your favorite movie, and speak about it for 1 minute without stopping. Don't worry about mistakes. Focus on fluency and expressing your ideas. Record yourself. Choose a question, e.g., what did you do last weekend? And record your answer. Listen to it after. You'll notice your mistakes and areas to improve, and over time, you'll hear how much better you sound. Shadow native speakers. Play a short video or podcast. Repeat what the speaker says in real time, copying their speed, intonation, and rhythm. This is called shadowing, and it's amazing for building confidence. Find conversation partners. Use apps like Tandem, HelloTalk, or Speaky to connect with other learners and native speakers. You can also join online English clubs or practice groups on Zoom or Discord. 4. Don't wait until you feel ready. One of the biggest myths in language learning is the idea that you need a huge vocabulary and perfect grammar before you start speaking. This is simply not true. In fact, waiting until you feel ready will keep you silent forever. You don't need hundreds of words to have a conversation. You can express yourself with a small vocabulary if you're creative. For example, if you don't know the word chef, you can say, the person who cooks in a restaurant. It's not perfect, but it works, and the more you practice, the better your vocabulary will become. 5. Focus on communication, not perfection. When you practice speaking, your goal is not to sound like a native speaker. Your goal is to communicate your ideas clearly. Mistakes don't matter as much as you think. Native speakers care far more about understanding you than about perfect grammar. Here's a mindset shift. Every mistake you make while speaking is a free lesson. If someone corrects you, that mistake will stick in your brain and you'll avoid it next time. But if you stay silent, you'll never learn. 6. Create speaking opportunities daily. Make it a rule. Every day, you must say something in English out loud. It doesn't have to be long. Even a short 2-minute practice is enough. The goal is to make speaking a habit. Here's an example: daily routine. Morning, talk to yourself in English while making breakfast. Afternoon, record a 1-minute voice note answering a question. Evening, join a short conversation online or shadow a YouTube video. If you do this every day for 30 days, you'll notice a huge difference. 7. Real-life example. How Anna doubled her fluency in 3 months. Anna was an English learner who spent years watching English movies with subtitles and reading books. She understood a lot, but couldn't speak without freezing. We changed her routine completely. She continued to listen to podcasts and read books, but we added 30 minutes of speaking every day. She practiced talking about her day, recorded herself, and joined an online language exchange twice a week. After 3 months, she went from, "I understand, but I can't speak," to holding 15-minute conversations without fear. She still made mistakes, but her confidence skyrocketed because she was finally using English, not just studying it. 8. Passive learning is only half the equation. Reading, listening, and watching videos are like filling your brain with ingredients. But speaking is like cooking a meal. It's where the magic happens. If you don't use the ingredients, they go to waste. So, stop waiting. Start speaking, talk to yourself, record your voice, join a conversation group, and remember, your goal is not to be perfect. Your goal is to be understood. The more you practice speaking, the faster you'll break through the fear and hesitation. And one day, you'll realize you're not translating or thinking too hard anymore. You're just speaking naturally. Part 4. Mistake. 4. Studying without a clear plan or goal. One of the most frustrating mistakes English learners make is studying randomly without any real plan or goal. They do a little bit of everything, hoping it will somehow make them fluent, but they never see real progress. Here's what usually happens. One day, you watch a YouTube video about phrasal verbs. The next day, you read an article about British slang. The day after that, you listen to a podcast about pronunciation. Then you go back to your grammar book and review the past perfect tense for the 10th time. And after weeks or even months of studying, you ask yourself, am I actually getting better? Why do I still feel stuck? The truth is, you're working hard, but not working smart. You're collecting information instead of building skills. And that's because you don't have a clear plan. 1. Why studying randomly doesn't work. Learning English is like building a house. You need a foundation, walls, and a roof. If you keep switching between different parts without finishing anything, your house will never be complete. Random learning is also demotivating. When you don't have a clear goal, it's hard to measure progress. You don't know what to focus on, so you jump from topic to topic. That constant switching creates confusion and makes you feel like you're not improving. Another problem? You waste time. If you're busy, you can't afford to spend hours on things that don't really help you reach your goals. 2. The solution: set clear, realistic goals. The first step is to decide what you actually want to achieve. Do you want to pass an exam, get a job abroad, speak confidently in daily conversations, watch movies without subtitles? Your goal will determine your plan. For example, if your goal is to pass the IELTS exam, you need to practice specific tasks like writing essays and doing timed speaking tests. But if your goal is to speak fluently with friends, you should spend more time on conversation practice and less time on academic vocabulary. Here's a good rule: set SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Example: bad goal: I want to improve my English. Too vague. Good goal: I will be able to speak for 5 minutes about my job without stopping by the end of this month. 3. Build a simple weekly plan. Once you know your goal, break it down into small, daily actions. A good English plan doesn't have to be complicated. It just needs to be consistent. Here's an example plan for someone who wants to improve speaking fluency. Monday: listen to a 10-minute podcast and write down 5 new phrases. Tuesday: practice speaking about a topic for 3 minutes and record yourself. Wednesday: join an online conversation group. Thursday: watch a YouTube video and shadow, repeat the speaker. Friday: write 5 sentences using the new phrases you learned. Saturday: have a 15-minute conversation with a language partner. Sunday: review everything you learned during the week. Notice how each day has a specific focus. This prevents random studying and makes your practice more productive. 4. Track your progress. Having a plan is good, but tracking your progress is even better. When you can see how much you've done, it keeps you motivated. You can track progress in many ways. Keep a journal of what you did each day. Record yourself speaking once a week and compare over time. Write down how many minutes you spend practicing English each day. Make a checklist of your goals and mark them when completed. The key is to measure your learning. If you don't measure it, you can't improve it. 5. Stay flexible, but not too flexible. A plan is a guide, not a prison. Life happens. Some days you'll be busy, tired, or unmotivated. That's normal. Don't feel guilty if you can't follow your plan perfectly. But don't let flexibility become an excuse. If you miss one day, it's okay. Just get back on track the next day. The danger is letting one missed day turn into one missed week. 6. Focus on one skill at a time. Many learners try to improve speaking, listening, reading, writing, grammar, and vocabulary all at once. This creates overwhelm and weak progress in all areas. Instead, choose 1 or 2 main skills to focus on for a month. For example, you might spend February improving listening and speaking. Then in March, Focus on writing and grammar. This focused approach will help you make faster, deeper improvements. 7. Real-life example: how David transformed his learning. David had been studying English for 3 years, but still couldn't hold a conversation. He was frustrated because he spent hours watching English videos and reading grammar books, but never felt fluent. We discovered that his learning was completely random. He didn't know what his goals were. He just consumed content without practicing. We created a clear plan together. David's goal was to speak confidently at work meetings, so we focused 80% of his time on speaking and listening. He practiced shadowing for 10 minutes every morning, joined a language exchange on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and recorded himself summarizing his work tasks each night. After 8 weeks, his confidence improved dramatically. He still made mistakes, but he could speak without freezing. Why? Because he had direction. 8. Your action step. Create your plan today. Ask yourself, what is my main English goal for the next 30 days? Which skills do I need to focus on? What small daily actions will help me get there? Write it down. Then follow it for 1 month. You'll be amazed at how much faster you improve when you stop studying randomly and start studying with purpose. To sum it up, random learning keeps you stuck. Set clear, realistic goals. Build a simple plan you can follow consistently. Track your progress and adjust when needed. When you know where you're going, every minute of practice becomes 10x more powerful, and that's how you move from feeling busy but not improving to actually seeing results you can feel proud of. Part 5. Mistake number 5. Giving up too easily and losing consistency. This final mistake is the one that quietly kills more English learning journeys than anything else: quitting too soon. Or, even if you don't fully quit, you study for a few weeks, then stop for a few weeks. You keep starting and stopping. And because you're not consistent, you never reach fluency. Here's the truth. Learning English is not a quick project. It's a long-term habit. And like any skill, playing guitar, cooking, driving, it takes time, patience, and repetition. But most learners want fast results. They study hard for 1 month, expect to speak fluently, and when they don't, they feel disappointed and stop. This constant cycle of starting and quitting is devastating. Every time you stop for weeks or months, you lose the progress you made. It's like taking 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. You stay in the same place for years, not because you're bad at English, but because you can't keep the habit alive. 1. Why do so many learners lose consistency? There are several reasons. They expect results too fast. If you think you'll be fluent in 3 months, you'll get frustrated when it doesn't happen. They study too much too soon. Doing 2 to 3 hours a day in the beginning feels exciting, but it's not sustainable if you're busy. They feel guilty when they miss a day. Instead of just continuing, they think, "I've failed," and stop completely. They don't have a routine that fits their life. If your schedule is unrealistic, you won't stick to it. 2. The solution: focus on consistency, not perfection. Fluency doesn't come from studying for 5 hours once a week. It comes from studying for 20 to 30 minutes every day. Small, consistent actions build stronger habits than big bursts of effort. Here's a mindset shift. Your job is not to be perfect. Your job is to keep showing up. Even if you only have 10 minutes today, that's fine. Do something small in English. Those small actions add up. 3. Build a routine you can actually stick to. Many learners create complicated schedules that are impossible to maintain. Then they feel bad when they can't follow them. Instead, create a simple daily routine. For example, morning. Listen to a short English podcast while getting ready. Afternoon. Review 5 flashcards or phrases. Evening. Practice speaking for 5 minutes or write 3 sentences about your day. This doesn't sound like much, but if you do it every day for 30 days, your confidence and vocabulary will grow more than you expect. 4. Make English part of your lifestyle. Fluency is easier when English isn't something separate that you study. It's something you live. Change small things in your daily life. Watch your favorite shows in English instead of your native language. Follow English-speaking creators on social media. Read one English post or article every day. Change your phone's language to English. The more you surround yourself with English, the less effort it takes to stay consistent. 5. Stop punishing yourself for missed days. Life will interrupt your routine sometimes. You'll be sick, busy, or tired. That's normal. The key is to get back on track quickly. Think of English like brushing your teeth. If you forget one night, you don't throw away your toothbrush and say, "I'll never brush again." You just brush the next day. Every time you miss a day, tell yourself, "That's okay. I'm still learning English. I'll continue tomorrow." 6. Celebrate small wins. One reason learners give up is because they feel like they're not improving. But progress in language learning is often invisible at first. That's why you need to celebrate small victories. Did you understand a new word in a movie? Celebrate. Did you hold a 2-minute conversation without freezing? Celebrate. Did you complete 7 days of daily practice? Celebrate. The more you celebrate, the more motivated you'll feel to keep going. 7. Find accountability. It's easier to stay consistent when someone else knows about your goal. Find an accountability partner, a friend, family member, teacher, or even an online community, and share your progress. You can even post about your daily English practice on social media. When others see your journey, you'll feel motivated to continue. 8. Real-life example. How Lucas finally broke the start-stop cycle. Lucas had been trying to learn English for 5 years. He would study for a month, then stop for 3 months. He felt like he was always starting from zero. We made one simple change. Instead of studying for 1 hour 3 times a week, he committed to just 15 minutes every day. He created a small routine. Morning, 5 minutes of listening. Afternoon, 5 minutes of vocabulary review. Evening, 5 minutes of speaking practice. He also joined a WhatsApp group where he sent a voice message in English every day. After 3 months, Lucas had completed over 80 consecutive days of practice. For the first time in his life, he was consistent. And because of that, his confidence and fluency improved dramatically. 9. Your action step. Commit to 30 days. If you want to avoid this mistake, give yourself a challenge. Practice English for at least 10 minutes a day for the next 30 days. You don't have to do the same thing every day. Mix it up. One day, speaking, another day, listening, another day, writing, but don't break the chain. Even 10 minutes counts. After 30 days, you'll feel a new sense of confidence. You'll have momentum. And once you have momentum, staying consistent becomes much easier. 10. Remember this: fluency is built, not found. Fluency doesn't happen one day. It's not a magical moment. It's the result of hundreds of small, consistent actions that stack up over time. So don't compare yourself to others. Don't expect perfection. And never, ever give up because you think you're not improving fast enough. Every time you practice English, even for 5 minutes, you're moving forward. And those small steps will eventually take you further than you ever imagined. Now you have all 5 mistakes and how to avoid them. 1. Focusing too much on grammar and not enough on using English. 2. Translating everything instead of thinking in English. 3. Only doing passive learning and avoiding speaking practice. 4. Studying randomly without a clear plan or goal. 5. Giving up too easily and losing consistency. If you avoid these mistakes, your English learning journey will become smoother, faster, and far more enjoyable. Now you know the 5 biggest mistakes that hold English learners back and how to avoid them. But here's the most important part: knowledge isn't enough. You have to take action. If you recognized yourself in any of these mistakes, that's a good thing. It means you can fix them. Start small. Maybe today you'll spend 10 minutes speaking out loud instead of just reading. Maybe you'll write down your learning plan for the next week. Maybe you'll decide that this is the month you stop quitting and finally stay consistent. Every small step you take will bring you closer to fluency. And the more you practice, the more confident and natural you'll feel in English. If this episode helped you, share it with a friend who's learning English too. And don't forget to leave a comment or review. Tell me which mistake you're going to fix first. Thank you for listening. Remember, fluency is not about being perfect. It's about showing up, learning from your mistakes, and moving forward one step at a time. Keep going. You've got this.